Hello and welcome to the Literate podcast, where there's two literate people literally talking about literacy. Literally.
I'm Corey.
And I'm Colin. And this week we have a discussion about literacy in terms of the average person and what we've taken away from our interviews with real people. So, Corey, would you like to begin?
I would love to. I interviewed my best friend, Oscar.
Best friend?
He's my best friend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've known him for 4 years. 3 years. We're going to say 3 years. And he grew up in Portland, and then he moved here in, second grade. So he's lived here most of his life.
Okay.
Both of his...
He's been around.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, both of his parents are of Hispanic descent, and so he grew up in a house speaking English and Spanish.
Oh, duolingual.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the one. I tried to learn Spanish. I didn't. Instead, I learned Japanese. I know a little bit of Spanish, but, not enough to get me anywhere.
Yeah, speaking of, that's a literal literacy.
Yeah.
We're talking about...
Anyway, back to Oscar. I guess since he grew up speaking both English and Spanish, he never was very good at either of them. And you'd think that, speaking, but I guess Spanish was a bigger struggle.
Huh.
But he just is not very eloquently spoken either way.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
That's
so...
cool. That's, his literacy, I guess.
That's his... he's quirky in that way.
Yeah.
He can't speak either very, eloquently.
Amazing. Does he have an accent at all? Or?
No, not really. No.
Oh, okay. But still,
I don't notice it
he's just
anyway.
terrible with the English language and the Spanish language.
Yeah, it's a double whammy.
Okay.
It's
interesting.
Yeah, but what I learned from that is that literacy kind of varies from language to language, and so I guess if you can't speak either language very well, it's hard to master, and that is important. For real life, because how well you understand language will partially determine how well you're going to do in the real world. And if you can't speak English or Spanish very well,
yeah,
people are going to
I see that. It's
choose
harder.
someone who can speak it well over someone who can't.
Yeah, that definitely makes me think of say illegal immigrants, who we have a lot coming from Mexico and a lot of Latin American countries who are maybe not as literate, in the English language, and there's a lot of discrimination because of that.
Right.
That's I'm from California originally, and my grandparents live there, and they're very old, and and they definitely kind of seem to stereotype a little bit, based on people's literacy. It's really, it's kind of whack. I love them, but I will say,
right. Yeah, and I guess that just
definitely
matters.
affects where you are in the world.
Yeah, because you're gonna get treated differently or not receive the positions that you want in the workplace or whatever because of how well your language ability is perceived. Yeah, that's basically
100%.
what I learned from Oscar.
Dang.
What about you, Colin?
Let's
what
hope
did you learn from
Oscar gets those literacy skills going.
Honestly, I would love to see that.
Better. My interview was with my girlfriend of a year about, and I asked her a bunch of different questions. So she is Mormon. She's a part of the Church of the Latter-day Saints. And, it's not really... people have their own opinions on it, obviously.
Right.
But I did ask her a lot about this because it is a very different belief system in terms of accountability, which is something I noticed. And I asked her, quote from my interview, how much do your religious beliefs impact your ability to read and write? That's a pretty direct, what literacy is, what, right. I know literacy to be.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, I grew up going to Sunday school, We would study the Bible. I'm pretty familiar with Bible stories, so I can kind of pick up on allusions / biblical references when reading, maybe more so than other people who have not had that experience.
That's handy.
So I was like, yeah, okay. I mean that just makes sense.
Yeah.
Pretty base level. Obviously, but I did ask her kind of a basic question. So it's I delve into a little deeper about her religion, I asked her, would you, or like, does she actually currently use her literacy skills to help the church? You know, like that was, I mean, I thought that was like, maybe there's something more there. And she said, you have to, which was an interesting response. And she said, so quote, yeah, you have to. Well, if you are asked to speak, you have to write talks and create lessons for Sunday school. You can say no, but it is really hard. End quote. And I followed with asking why it was hard, you know, obviously. And she said, quote, it's hard because you really don't want to do it, but you know you should. Right. Also, Brother Wright is the cutest old man, and it's really hard to say no to him.
Oh, of course. That's a given.
Yeah, so Brother Wright, I guess, is just some old man, but it's, I don't know, it seemed really clear here that literacy and just language and your ability to communicate with people and express how you feel is definitely really sponsored strongly by the church, her church.
Right.
You know, like, if she's making lesson plans for Sunday school as, like, an 18-year-old.
I know.
Like, she's a senior in high school and she's doing this stuff. You know, that's a very large responsibility. That's all about teaching and communicating, you know. So I kind of found, like, religion definitely, like, while you're not in an academic setting necessarily, I mean, obviously there's religious schools. She goes to a public high school. Outside of her academic setting, she's still having to do these things for her church that definitely develop her language and the way she communicates.
Definitely, yeah.
But that is all we have for the podcast today. But
tune in next week.
Tune in next week.